Now, my guest tonight has had an incredible and very varied career in music. He really has done it all. From the huge success of the Wombles in the 70s to writing for megastars like Cliff Richard and Katie Melua, even lyrics for the Phantom of the Opera. Mike Batt has some stories to tell, and he's put them all in a new book. Before we chat to him, have a listen to this.
They never see under their noses a womble maybe.
This is the closest thing to crazy I have ever been.
Bright eyes, how can you close and fail?
Oh, Mike, you were just admiring the compilation you approve.
Yeah,
All
you
of
did a
life is in there.
Lovely compilation. It's so nice to see those little snippets of it all, you know.
Because you've done so much and so varied.
Well, it has been, quite a varied, I'd say, colourful life. Here I am wearing black, but it's actually been quite an adventure. And, you know, the funny thing was, by writing it down, you don't realise you've got much of a story until you write it down. You hopefully enjoy each moment of your life, but when you write it down as a book, and in fact we called the book The Closest Thing to Crazy, and you played a clip from the song, and that's because you write it down and think, actually, that's a perfect title for it because of the so many things that have happened. And in fact, I was in a bookstore the other day, and the young guy said, you know what, we should almost put this into fiction because it's such a story. And,
People wouldn't believe it if you...
Obviously not a lying story, it's all true. But things like, you know, working with Art Garfunkel and doing Bright Eyes and things like that. I mean, and how we did it, because you don't just make a record in a moment. You know, well, sometimes you do, but very often, you know, there's a story to how you get into it and what happens after.
And you tell some pretty amazing stories in this. I mean, people like Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
What's that one?
Oh, well, I first met Paul on Montserrat, the island. It's sadly been wasted by a volcano now, damaged very badly by a volcano. But it was a wonderful recording studio on the island, and that's where I met Paul. And I can't actually tell you. I was going to sing you the lyrics because when he met me. No, I can't because you can't, not on public television.
You're allowed
to. As let me just say that as he came up the garden path, I didn't even know he was recording there. He started singing, instead of bright eyes burning like fire, he was saying big wobbling like jelly.
Oh, okay, we get the picture.
And it was to make me feel at home, being Paul McCartney, he must be so used to people being a little bit
bit intimidated.
As my hero. I mean, and also he took me into the studio and said, "Oh, we're putting some drums on," and guess who the drummer was? Stevie Wonder.
No.
You know, and they all came for dinner on my boat.
Incredible.
Because we were on a boat trip, 2-year boat trip around the world, which is the second, it's in 3 sections, the book, so the boat trip connects the first and the third sections. So it's been quite exciting.
How do you feel about the fact that most people kind of remember you for the Wombles? Does that bother you?
Only if it's the first question in a radio interview. You know, I used to say that for a laugh when people used to say, does it bother you? You know, it's one of the questions I get asked all the time. The answer to it is no, it doesn't, because I got so much joy from and still do, from the Wombles when we did Glastonbury in 2011. I mean, that's not that long ago, and I was 61 then, and it was just fantastic to have a whole, you know, great big crowd who knew who the Wombles were after all this time.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. We've only got a few seconds left, but am I right in thinking that your mum made those costumes?
She did. She made all the costumes, and that's one of the reasons it brought so much joy to my life. And all the other things, like heavy metal, I've worked with Hawkwind and other people and done symphonic stuff, but I still come back and think, when people say, what about the Wombles? I think, I'm not. I did some of my best work with the Wombles.
You brought a lot of joy. It's been so lovely to talk to you, and wonderful book. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Mike.
having me in and talking about the book. It's lovely.